this girl was laying down, waiting for a kiss, I ended up looking around and I saw that everyone in the audience was waiting for me to kiss this girl. Obviously, I didn't want to, but once they started chanting kiss, 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 that's when I knew I had no choice. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another embarrassing but crazy story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was actually, funny enough, in grade 6. Meaning that this was the first year of middle school, and I'm gonna be honest with you, back when I was in middle school, I was a total nobody. No joke, I really did not know anything. When it came to Riz, when it came to pulling girls, absolutely nothing. And also, one major thing I struggled with back when I was in grade 6 was that I had a really bad stutter. And since I had a bad stutter, I remember back when I was in grade 6, my counselor back in my middle school ended up telling me, okay, Baba, since you have a really bad stutter, what we're gonna do is that actually we're gonna make you take theater lessons. I remember I was so confused on why they wanted me to take theater lessons, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I was not good enough to go on stage. Like, imagine a little kid just stuttering on a stage, not knowing what to say. Yeah, I thought that was gonna be me. But I remember my counselor ended up taking me to the theater class, and when I got there, I remember a lot of kids were really confused because we were midway through the school year, and I really did not want to be in that classroom. But luckily enough, I remember there was one girl in my class that actually ended up coming up to me when my counselor brought me in, and she actually started being really nice to me. She introduced me to a bunch of different people in the classroom, and honestly, for some reason, this girl was actually pretty popular. I don't know why she took an interest in me, maybe just because I was a simple guy that really didn't care about anything else and wasn't about horsing around like most people are back in grade 6, but honestly, I was accepting of it. And one thing led to another. Well, this is where the story gets kind of interesting, because I remember our theater teacher actually ended up making us do a play, and this play was called Romeo and Juliet. Now, if you guys don't know Romeo and Juliet, basically the storyline is about two people that fall in love and a bunch of really gross stuff. I don't know, to be honest, I'm not your English teacher, so I'm not going to teach you what Romeo and Juliet is, but we were actually going to do the school play. And funny enough, when the teacher ended up giving us our scripts, I ended up getting Romeo. And who was the girl that got Juliet? Well, the girl that introduced me to the class in the first place. For some reason, I guess my counselor ended up telling my theater teacher that it'd be smart for me to have a big role right off the beginning, so I feel like I have to get over my stutter and perform properly, which honestly is a lot of pressure, especially for a kid like me back in grade 6. I was actually terrified. So if you're a teacher, please don't ever do this. But I remember when I got the script, I ended up reading it over, and the girl that was supposed to play Juliet ends up walking up to me. She walks up to me and says, hey, do you want to like practice our lines together since, you know, we're the main characters? Yeah, sure. I'm down for that, is what I said to her. And I remember me and her, we ended up going to a separate room and practicing our lines. I remember when I was practicing my lines with her, this girl obviously noticed that I had a really bad stutter. And honestly, it was super embarrassing because knowing that the girl that was playing Juliet was one of the more popular girls in the classroom really just made me feel like my reputation in the school food chain was gonna go down. But luckily, this girl was actually being really nice about it, and she understood that I had a really bad stutter. It was like the teacher told her that I had a bad condition of stutteritis back when I was younger. But I remember as me and this girl went through the script, out of nowhere, she gets really upset because one thing she ended up saying was, wait, what? Is there no kissing scene? Are you serious? Where's the kissing scene? The what? Is what I asked her. And that's when she ended up telling me the part of Romeo and Juliet where they actually are supposed to kiss. Now, I think our teacher actually ended up taking out the kissing scene because, well, technically speaking, I don't think a bunch of people in my school want to see two kids kissing, nor are parents allowed to make kids kiss, even if it's for a school play. So I didn't mind it. But as for this girl, well, she got really upset to the point where she actually ended up going up to the teacher and saying, excuse me, where's the kissing scene in this? Oh, yeah, we ended up taking it out because, well, I didn't know if you were comfortable with kissing. I remember she looks at the teacher and says, what? Of course I am. You kidding me? It's all about Romeo and Juliet. Do you think William Shakespeare would just take it out? No, it's part of the storyline. I remember my teacher ended up trying to calm her down and then ended up looking at me watching this whole thing go down and asked me, Bubba, are you okay with kissing? I remember that moment, I just stood there frozen. I didn't even say a word. I just stood there looking at both of them as they were arguing. And when he asked me that question, well, I actually ended up just running away. I didn't know what answer to give. I didn't want to say yes because, you know, it's not like I didn't want to kiss her. But at the same time, I didn't want to say no because I didn't want to make it seem like that I didn't want to kiss her. I don't know. I didn't know what to say and I just ended up leaving. That was the best thing I could do. My flight or fight reaction ended up kicking in. But as weeks went on, no joke, this girl got more upset as we ended up practicing together our lines because she was really upset that I didn't give an answer and just say yes to kissing her. So as we kept practicing our lines, she started being more distant with me and really upset. But as well as, not gonna lie, the play ended up being really great without the kissing scene. We ended up doing rehearsal and things went really well. And honestly, a lot of people in the classroom started liking how I actually was able to, well, perform better, even though I still had a little stutter, but still got into the groove of being on stage. But then the final day of when we were supposed to perform was was the worst day of my life. Well, not actually, but back then in grade 6, it would have been. Because I remember on the final day of practice, that day after school, we were going to have parents and teachers and other students inside my school come and watch us perform the play. Consider it the final assignment for our theater class. And I remember I was like really nervous, but at the same time, I had my lines down. I was doing great in rehearsal. But one thing I never conquered, I guess, back then was stage fright. So knowing that I was going to perform in front of a giant stage was really nerve-wracking. But luckily, I wasn't the only one, since most people in my classroom at the time didn't actually perform on stage ever in their life, unless they were like, you know, gifted in some way. But I remember as we all got suited up in the change rooms and we all started getting ready, I remember this girl that was supposed to play Juliet ends up coming up to me. And after weeks of being super distant, she looked at me and said, Baba, I have a question. Yeah, what's up? We're about to go on stage soon. Yeah, I just want to know, are you okay with us kissing? Wait, what? Did the teacher put it back in? No. I'm just curious. Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind kissing you. Not at all. But, you know, it's not in the script, so it's whatever. Okay, that's fine. I'll deal with it. Wait, what? And that's when she ended up leaving. She ended up leaving right as she said she'll deal with it and ended up starting the play. I was so confused on, like, you know, what she meant by that. But to be honest, I didn't really want to question it because obviously I had more things to focus on. And that was actually being on stage performing Romeo and Juliet. But as the acts went by and we ended up performing, on the final act is where things went south. Because I remember it was the act and the scene where basically Juliet is supposed to be like, you know, pretend dead. And I'm supposed to, you know, kiss her to wake up. In reality, I just, you know, say some magical words and she wakes up, as the script would say. But this girl had a different plan, because I remember I ended up saying the lines that were supposed to wake her up from her forever sleep, but she wouldn't wake up. I was so confused and ended up saying the line again, but she still wouldn't wake up. I have no idea why she did this until I ended up looking at her and she ended up puckering her lips, wanting me to kiss her. And at that moment, I was in absolute shock. It got to the point where the audience ended up looking at me and I ended up looking at her, wanting me to kiss her. And I ended up looking at my teacher and my teacher just ends up pointing at her saying like, yes, like just kiss her. And everyone in the audience ended up chanting, kiss, 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 kiss. And me knowing that this was going down, I ended up just looking at her. And me, I'm not gonna lie to you, at this time, I didn't have that much experience kissing women, okay? Like, I've only maybe kissed one girl at that time. So I ended up bending over and kissing her. And when I did, the whole crowd just started cheering. It was the biggest cheer I think I ever got from me being on stage, like, ever. And not to mention, my parents were in the audience. So kissing a girl in front of them was something I never expected to do back when I was in grade 6. But I ended up kissing her and she woke up and ended up kissing me again because I guess she liked it so much, even though it wasn't part of the script. And everyone started clapping, cheering even more. And then that's when the curtains finally came and the play ended. I remember I looked at her after when the curtains closed and asked her, why'd you do that? And that's when she said, well, the teacher's not going to stop the whole play just because we kissed. But my teacher ended up coming into the stage as the curtains closed and said, guys, you guys were not supposed to kiss, but I mean, you guys did it. And honestly, it made the play a lot better than what it was written. So thank you guys for doing that appropriately. Next time, Bubba, when a girl wants you to kiss her, just do it. Okay, so I've left this story in the back burner for way too long. The final part of me and my crush. And I just want to say I am so sorry that I did not give it to you guys sooner. I should have gave it to you guys sooner, and I don't know why I didn't, but I guess this video will finally make up for that. So let's just get straight into it so I don't waste your time. Actually, that's a lie. I'm gonna waste 2 seconds just to say, make sure you guys do follow my Kick, because I'm streaming on Kick, going live, and also telling you guys crazy stories just like this one. Anyways, let's get straight into it. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and we'll get back to an awesome story. So today's story is the final part of me and my crush. If you guys didn't see that story, basically go back to the last 2 videos of basically where I ended up blue balling in front of my crush in my middle school dance, and also I ended up asking my middle school crush to the dance. If you guys watch those 2 videos, honestly, you guys will understand what happens, and basically now we ended up here. Anyways, last we left off, I remember basically I was walking home from the school dance all upset and really down, but I was getting text messages back to back to back on my phone of basically people saying that I should come back. Now, obviously, I ignored it. I was too embarrassed, and honestly, I was really shy. Like, are you kidding me? I literally had like blue balls in front of my crush, and you expect me to go back? I couldn't. I was too embarrassed, and I was so nervous. So I remember basically what ended up happening was I ended up staying at home, just playing video games, and even the next morning when I woke up, I didn't want to go to school. I was so shy and so embarrassed, but then I ended up getting an Instagram notification. I got an Instagram notification of, funny enough, my middle school crush liking one of my photos. It was the photo that my mom took before I went to the school dance, and I forgot I posted it, but she ended up liking it, and she commented under it saying, "Can't wait to see you at school." Like, really? Are you actually excited to see me at school is what I thought in my mind, because there's no way this girl was actually excited after I literally had blue balls and ran away from her in the middle of the school dance. Like I said, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the last episode of this. Anyways, going on from there though, I remember I ended up getting my backpack ready and stuff because my mom always told me that I had to go to school, and by that I mean she would take away my console if I didn't. So yeah, I got ready for school and I started walking to school. As I was walking to school though, I remember I was really kind of just walking really slowly because in my mind I was thinking, if I go to school and I had to explain to everyone that I got a basic blue balls in front of my middle school crush during a dance, I could never live with myself. Anyways, I was writing my journal basically saying how I really didn't want to go to school, and then I finally made it to the front steps. When I got to the front steps, I remember I opened the door handle, and once I walked in, I remember seeing a lot of people actually staring at me. I don't know why they were staring at me. I don't know if it was because I had my shirt on backwards, or it's because maybe I had my backpack kind of in a weird angle. I have no idea. But anyways, as I was walking through the hallway, I remember I ended up seeing my locker. And as you guys may know, I ended up getting my locker beside my crush's locker. So I remember as I was walking up to my locker, my crush was already there. I didn't want to walk up to her. I couldn't after what I did. So I remember I kind of just ended up turning around and walking away and basically trying to avoid her. And I remember I kept avoiding her throughout the whole day. Like, I think I didn't even go to my locker. You know what I mean? Like, I just couldn't. But then I remember when I ended up going into my math class, me and her, we sat in the same table group. And when I sat down on my desk, I remember I ended up kind of looking at her because she was literally sitting right across from me. It was like a super awkward dinner date with a girl that you just don't know how to speak to. So I remember I ended up just sitting down, and then she ended up looking at me saying, "Hey, Baba, can I talk to you after school, please?" Yeah, sure, is what I ended up telling her. I didn't know why she wanted to talk to me or why she whispered she wanted to talk to me. I was already embarrassed enough. Like, she didn't have to tell me to my face, as at least that's what I thought was gonna happen. But I remember I ended up looking around the classroom, and honestly, everything kind of just started to go normal. Maybe I was overreacting a bit when I thought, you know, maybe my world was over. But I remember after math class, I ended up going to my locker with her, and we ended up talking. As we were walking to our lockers, I remember she looked at me and said, "Hey, like, I just have a question. Like, was everything okay yesterday?" And I ended up looking at her saying, "Oh yeah, like, it's fine. I was okay." She ended up looking at me and she realized I was stuttering and said, "Listen, like, honestly, I heard a rumor, but like, I don't know if it's true." "What's the rumor?" is what I asked her afterwards. She ended up finally saying to me, "Well, like, I heard that, like, I don't know, like, you got like hard from me dancing with me yesterday." "Where'd you hear that from?" "What? No, I would never get that hard," is what I said. And honestly, it's weird how people found that out as well. Like, I have no idea how people found out I got blue balls from my middle school crush during the school dance listening to Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys. But I remember out of pure embarrassment, I ended up just looking at her as she looked at me kind of like in a puzzled face. And I ended up saying, "Okay, yeah, maybe I got one, and honestly, I'm sorry. I didn't know what came a hold of me." And I basically apologized to my middle school crush that I had blue balls. I apologize for having blue balls. What man has to apologize for his giant eggplant to become giant? I don't know. I was really upset, and I remember I was embarrassed, and I didn't know what to think. And when I apologized, I remember I was looking at the ground, but then when I looked up and I looked at her eyes, she ended up kissing me. Yeah. She ended up kissing me. I don't know what I did, but she literally just came up to me and just kissed me right in my face. And at that moment, I was confused. I'm like, "Wait, what? You just kissed me," is what I said after she was done. She looked at me and said, "Well, yeah, like, honestly, like, no guy's ever been hard for me before, and I think that's kind of cute." "You think it's cute when I have a boner for you? Where were you months ago?" Sorry. That's super weird, but you know what I mean. Anyways, I remember basically after that whole thing, I was super, like, ecstatic. I was happy. I was freaking out. And then this is where things get worse. I remember there was my middle school, well, enemy, I would say, in this situation. He ended up walking up to me, and he was the lacrosse kid that was in the last 2 episodes of this story. He walked up to me and said, "Yo, like, what? You kissed him? Are you kidding me?" And the kid that played lacrosse ended up pushing me on the ground. He pushed me on the ground and basically started laughing, and then I realized that my journal was literally on the ground as well, because it fell out of my backpack when he pushed me. I remember the kid that was like a lacrosse player that was also a bully in this sense ended up picking up my book aka my journal or diary, as some people say, but it's a journal. And he started opening it and reading it. He read how basically I was in love with my middle school crush. He read how I was literally in love with her, how I loved her so much, how I was obsessed with her. Basically everything that a guy should not be reading about another girl. And I remember he looked at it and was reading through it and was laughing and laughing. And he said it out loud to other people in the hallway, to the point where I stood up, I walked up to him, and I don't know what came a hold of me, but yes, I did do this and I regret it so badly. I kicked him in the eggplant. Yeah, I kicked him in the eggplant. I was so embarrassed. And I remember when I kicked him, he ended up dropping my book. I grabbed it and I saw my middle school crush's eyes as she was like kind of like tearing up, thinking how like adorable it was for what I did. But I didn't know that. I thought she was embarrassed from what I wrote in my journal. So I ended up running away. I ran outside to the oak tree that was outside our middle school, and I sat down and started writing down what just happened. I never felt a more depressing day than that one. It sucked. I didn't know what to think. To think that, you know, I get kissed and the next minute I get exposed for just being me. It doesn't make sense. Anyways, after that situation, I remember I was sitting down and just kind of I don't know, being all sad. It got to the point where after writing my journal, I ended up reading my Batman comic book. And then that's when, out of nowhere, my middle school crush ends up seeing me again. She walks up to me and sits beside me beside the oak tree. And she's like, honestly, Bubba, like, that guy sucks. Okay, just don't listen to him. He's just a jerk. Yeah, I know, is what I said to her afterwards. She looks at me again and she's like, Bubba, listen, honestly, I think you're awesome. And I think you're adorable. I think you're cute. I really like you too. Really? Is what I said? Because I didn't believe it. To be honest, it felt like it was something straight out of a movie she was explaining to me. But then she ended up putting her hand on my hand that was on my comic book, and she ended up saying, also, my favorite superhero is Catwoman. What? Is what I said? At that point, I knew me and her, we were gonna be in a really good relationship. But at the same time, though, I will say this much, we were in middle school, so our relationship wasn't that crazy, but it does get crazier throughout the school year. So one thing I will say is that many people call me a TikToker, and I'm gonna say this right now, I'd rather be called a YouTuber than a TikToker. Yes, I do understand that I have a major following on TikTok, and that's thanks to you guys. But honestly, if I could choose any platform to blow up on and be huge on, would be YouTube. So make that dream happen by pressing the subscribe button. And on top of that, not to mention, I am live on Kick streaming and telling these crazy stories live to you guys. So please hit that subscribe button, join me live on Kick streaming and telling these crazy stories live. But other than that, I'm just gonna get straight into this insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a story that honestly I didn't want to tell, but at the same time I don't care anymore. Now, I remember back when I was in grade 11, everyone, and I mean every single person you know, would use TikTok. TikTok was like over popular, everyone would use it, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I hated it. I thought it was cringy and just another Musical.ly platform that was absolutely garbage. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Yes, a lot of my career started off from TikTok. Hell, I have like 2 million followers on there thanks to you guys. And I'm not saying I hate TikTok because I'm big on it. I'm saying because my personal history with, well, TikTokers weren't ever so nice. I remember back when I was in grade 11, there was a TikToker that was in my school. Now, the thing about this TikToker was that he was a dude that would always show off that he was a TikToker, meaning that he would do the personal curls. He would, like, you know, paint his nails. He was like Little Huddy if he was, well, from Walmart. It was honestly super cringy. And I remember me and my friends, we'd always make fun of him. We'd always make fun of him, pick on him, and basically treat him like absolute garbage. And the only comeback he would always have is, oh, you guys could never be famous. That's why you're making fun of me. You're just more haters. To be honest, me and my friends never really cared that he was famous. We just made fun of him because he was a guy who painted his nails. And honestly, that was enough for me to bully him. But overall, I won't lie to you, it's not like this guy was actually like super famous. Like, I will say, like, he had like a couple thousand followers. I would say around like maybe like 40,000 followers at the time. And I will say this, yes, 40,000 people is a lot. And I can't imagine 40,000 people standing in my room listening to me tell a crazy story. But for 40,000 people to look at a guy basically flexing his abs and showing his painted nails on the internet made me severely cringe. Going on with the story though, I remember me and my friends would always pick on this guy and basically make fun of him. That's a key point of the main story. Now, where things get really weird is I want to say later on down the line. I want to say a couple months go by and this guy keeps doing his TikToks, following his dreams, and well, keeps flexing his abs and showing off his painted nails. And me and my friends, we'd always pick on him and it still continued till later on. But to be honest, I was so focused on doing the devil's tango and meeting girls that I remember one time there was a girl that I ended up meeting that I actually fell in love with. Now this girl, me and her, we actually started dating, we started seeing each other, and I remember me and her, we got along great. She went to the same school as me, and I remember one time when me and her were hanging out in the school cafeteria with the boys, one of the boys ended up walking up to the TikToker kid that was around the cafeteria at the time for some reason, and basically pushed him on the ground, and we basically made fun of his painted nails once again. I remember he stood up and basically started making fun of us for still being in the same position and never being able to grow on any platform or be famous. And me and my friends, we didn't care because we didn't want to be famous at the time. Hell, I mean, I won't lie, I kind of wanted to be famous, but not in the way he is being. Like, I'd rather come on here on the microphone telling stories about how I do the devil's tango than me showing my abs and, you know, painting my nails live. Like, it's just weird. But I remember he ended up walking up to my girlfriend afterwards and saying, "Hey, how you doing, cutie? What's up with you?" And I remember when I saw him flirting with my girl, well, that's when I instantly walked up to him and punched him in the face. I'm not joking, I punched this guy straight in the face. I remember he ended up basically making it a bigger deal than it was supposed to, and honestly, he deserved it for flirting with my girlfriend at the time. But he ended up telling me, "Oh my goodness, like, Bubba, you actually just punched me in the face. You know what? I'm gonna make sure all my followers know that you're a piece of garbage." What is what I said? And that's when I told him to eat my shorts, and then basically me and my buddies ended up walking away. When we walked away, I remember my girlfriend at the time looked at me saying, "Bubba, like, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna like tell the internet about you now and stuff?" And I remember I looked at her and said, "Honestly, I could care less." And then we ended up walking away. I remember the next day though, I was sitting on my phone, basically just chilling on the school hallway near my locker, and then my girlfriend ends up running up to me. She runs up to me and says, Bubba, he posted something." "Who posted something?" is what I said afterwards. And then afterwards, she told me, "Like, the guy you punched yesterday, that TikTok kid, yeah, he actually like posted something, look." And basically it was a TikTok explaining how he got punched by me and how basically everyone should hate on me for punching their favorite celebrity. The fact that he called himself a celebrity in that video was really cringe, but on top of that, I won't lie to you, he basically ended up saying my full name and started making fun of me and basically said how it was a weak punch even though he had a black eye. Now I remember when I was reading the comment section, a lot of people were basically saying how, like, you know, bullying wasn't cool and how basically I was jealous of his career and stuff. And I remember I looked at these comments and thought, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, people actually care about this dude, even though 80% of the comments were just, you know, girls basically simping for him. I will say this much, it was really sad seeing how many people actually cared about a dude that showed his body parts and basically lip synced to whatever was going viral at the time. I mean, to be fair though, that was the trending thing at the time as well. I don't know. I remember I looked at that and thought this was the dumbest thing ever, and I told my girlfriend at the time to not worry about it because obviously nothing's gonna happen. And one thing I will say was that I was right. Even though at the time he had over 100,000 followers on TikTok and he was basically, you know, talking about his black eye, apparently a lot of people started seeing that video and it got over like maybe 300,000 views, which is really good, by the way. 300,000 views is insane on TikTok. And I remember I looked at this video and I started thinking, like, nothing's gonna happen to me, right? And that's when I did a dumb mistake and ended up leaving a comment saying, "Dude, you deserved it. You flirted with my girlfriend." And when I said that, I remember that comment ended up getting a lot of likes and a lot of people were actually agreeing with me. And well, let's just say my girlfriend ended up doing the dumbest thing ever afterwards. I remember a week went by and basically this whole controversy started dying down. And to be honest, no one really cared because a lot of people agreed with my opinion. But my girlfriend didn't know that I left that comment, and nor did I tell her because honestly, it was none of her business and it wasn't even that big of a deal. At least so I thought. But like I said, a week went by and I remember I was just doing my own thing, hanging out and just doing what I usually do. And out of nowhere, and I mean out of nowhere, everyone was talking about a party that this TikToker was celebrating for hitting over 300,000 followers. Now, obviously a lot of people were going, but me and my friends weren't obviously invited because we used to pick on the kid, which I mean, fair enough. I didn't really want to go to his house, to be honest, because, well, who really cares? But apparently a lot of girls wanted to go and a lot of girls were excited to go. And I remember my girlfriend ended up walking up to me saying, "Hey Bubba, is it cool if I go to this party?" I remember I looked at her and said, "Well, I mean, I don't control you. If you want to go for it. I mean, it seems fun, but me, I'm not gonna go, to be honest with you." She ended up saying okay, and then the next day I remember it was a Friday night and she ended up going to this party. Now this party was apparently super fun and a lot of people were having a good time, and like the guy posted it on TikTok about the party, so good for him. And honestly, congrats on hitting your 300,000 followers, by the way. At the time, at least. This was like over 5 years ago, so I mean, who really cares? But I remember afterwards, when Monday came around and everyone went back to school, I remember a lot of my friends ended up walking up to me, and then a girl that I didn't really recognize ended up walking up to me as well. She walked up to me and said, Bubba, I have a question. You're dating this girl, right? Yeah, what about her? Is what I said. And that's when she showed me a TikTok video that the guy posted in front of his 300,000 followers of him making out with my girlfriend. And that's when I remembered I was so angry and so upset that I ended up walking around the school super mad. Like, I was walking around the school as if I was the Punisher. And when I saw him, I remember I walked up to him. And I won't lie to you, I was a bit bigger than this kid as well. So, I mean, it was pretty easy to kick his butt, not gonna lie. But I basically ended up tackling him on the ground and punching his face over and over and over. And I was just really upset. I remember everyone started freaking out as I was beating this kid to a pulp, and everyone started filming with their phones. And me, I just kept punching him over and over again, like nonstop. And that's when I remember I looked over at my girlfriend, and my girlfriend ended up running up to me, pushing me off him, saying, "Don't, like, I love him." "You love him?" is what I said. And that's when I told him that one day you're going to regret kissing him at that party. And I walked away. Now, I will say this much. 5 years later, things changed. I became a successful TikToker and became, well, a TikTok guy, basically. And he ended up basically losing his career and getting his TikTok account banned for, well, very sexualized content. And well, the girl, she ended up hitting my DMs literally last week as I'm filming this video. And what's gonna happen next is up to you. If you guys want, join me live on Kick. I'm gonna be basically deciding on what I should do next, and maybe you guys can watch me do it as well. Anyways, like I always say, fall for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.